Hello, everyone. I know this is a little bit of a different format than what we were originally planning, but I'm so glad that we are able to have this community chat for the Montalvo International Homeschool Academy um, channel, page, platform, however you want to call it. We're primarily kind of living on Instagram right now, but hoping to have more community chats like this right on Zoom. So who knows? Maybe this is actually the start of what I've always been envisioning to begin with. So for those who may be catching this replay, if you didn't get the memo that we switched from Instagram Live to Zoom, and maybe you are unfamiliar with Homeschool Academy or my Homeschool Academy, my name is Antoinette Montalvo, and I am the co-founder of Montalvo International LLC alongside my husband Luis Montalvo, and my homeschool academy, kind of a play on words of MI or Montalvo International Homeschool Academy, um, was just started as, an opportunity to share some of our own experiences as a homeschooling family. And it's really just focused on inspiring and equipping kingdom-minded parents to educate and raise kingdom-minded children. And so if you haven't, learned about us, go over to our Instagram page at MI underscore homeschool underscore academy, my homeschool academy. If you found this link in the stories, in my personal stories, or you came across it some other way, just go ahead and click join or follow onto the My Homeschool Academy. And you can also learn more about it on our website at www.montalvointernational.org, and you can learn about Montalvo International and just kind of our focus and platform where we're really, again, about kingdom-minded people living kingdom-driven lives. And that's spilled over into our homeschool academy and just really wanting to take a biblical stance and just focusing on our faith as we homeschool and educate our kids. And even just for any kids who may or may not be homeschooled, maybe in traditional school, but you're just looking to find that support and really thinking about how to raise kingdom-minded kids. So welcome for those who are here for the first time. And again, Homeschool Academy is really just about finding that vision and mission that we've placed where every parent, is able to flourish, especially homeschooling parents, but every parent is able to flourish while confidently educating your kids in the individual format that God wants you to educate them without the pressure to conform to standards. And so to the standards of the traditional system, not saying you shouldn't have standards, but to traditional systems that may go beyond what you want to do. Just as a disclaimer for tonight's chat, we will be talking about health, movement, exercise, nutrition tips, but just letting you know in this community chats, it's just educational in nature. Our views are our own. We're not being sponsored to do this, but it's really just about having an opportunity to think through in a casual and informal setting how we can be more intentional, especially at the beginning of the year, especially as we're just getting started. And, there's a lot of focus on fitness and health and being healthy, but also seeing what that looks like for families, not just for individuals, not just going to the gym, but really as families, what are we doing to make sure that we stay healthy, we stay well, and not only that we stay well and provide that health that we need for ourselves, but also incorporating that and modeling that for our children, and just being able to find those opportunities as a way to be in community and bond together. So I say all that to just kind of give a precursor that this is really just educational in nature. It's just an informal chat. It's kind of our community chats that we had. The very first one that we had, if you happen to have catched our Instagram live from a long time ago, we had our very first Instagram live. I think it was at the end of 2024. So we're trying to do more of these, but our very first one was with Nellie Pagosian, and she and I talked about just the education system and just different ways that we can incorporate curriculums, educational formats, and just theoretical educational structures that may be helpful for both traditional and homeschooling parents. And so if you didn't catch that live or wanted to see some of our previous community chats, you can go to that one on our Instagram page. It's one of our very first lives that we had a chance to do. And so this is kind of picking up where we first left off in our homeschooling journey, in our community chats, in our opportunity to support one another in families and community, and with kids, especially again for those homeschooling families that maybe physical education isn't written into the curriculum like it is maybe at school or having PE or those types of things. But, contrary to popular belief, sometimes you can add much more physical activity, health, and wellness into your structure when you are building your own curriculum and building your own format. And so this is just an opportunity to chat about that a little bit and just think through ways to make sure that we're promoting healthy families, so that we leave legacy, we live with longevity, and that we are able to model just healthy behavior and mindset for our kids. Very much like the scriptures say, beloved, I want you to prosper just as your soul prospers. So just thinking about health in our soul, but also thinking about health in our bodies as well. Just knowing that health is an important aspect, staying healthy, being healthy. But again, not only from the mindset of always having a rigid plan and structure, but just really being intentional about movement, about exercise, about wellness, and about nutrition. So those are just some of those backgrounds. So I do want to just also highlight our special guest that's going to be with us tonight in our community chats for My Homeschool Academy. And it is Dr. Michelle Aiken, my sister, which I'm so thankful that she agreed to do this and she was flexible enough in the format, even though we switched from Instagram Live. And again, sorry for those who wanted to jump on Instagram Live and weren't able to. We attempted to, but Instagram has changed some of their policies, so we weren't able to go live from our page. So we switched it up to Zoom and we are going to post this onto Instagram. So maybe you're catching this in the replay. Maybe you happen to link into this chat while it's live. We shared that link in our story. So hopefully some people can come across it, but we will be putting this in the replay. But I'm so excited for Michelle to be with us. Dr. Michelle Aiken, my amazing sister. Fun fact, she was also homeschooled and probably I would say watching my parents, my mother homeschool my younger siblings provided the confidence that I needed to embark on homeschooling myself. And so she was homeschooled in up until sixth grade.
In the third grade, before
Third
the
grade,
third
third
grade.
grade. Okay,
Mhm.
third grade. And so she has, she understands kind of the flow of homeschooling format. And so, because she was a part of it, which I'm really excited about that. But also, she has a master's in kinesiology and a doctorate of athletic training. So, sports and movement and exercise science is definitely woven into just what she does. And even as her profession has taken many different pathways, it's really just about being safe with your body physically, being safe in terms of how the mechanics of how you use your body, and just making sure that you are doing things with a holistic standpoint. And so I'm going to let Michelle kind of jump in, give a little bit more of her background, and then we'll just kind of chat as she's talking about her background, just some practical tools and tips for families when we think about movement, when we think about exercise, when we think about nutrition, when we think about wellness, and just thinking about how we can be stronger, how we can be healthier, and just some of the focus things that we can do as we start the new year and really, really modeling healthy behavior, not only for ourselves, but for our family units so that we can go forward strong. So, Michelle, without further ado, I'll let you take it away and give like a little intro of yourself and we'll go from there.
Hi, my name is Michelle. I am a certified athletic trainer, board certified athletic trainer. I started I guess, athletic training or started the process of becoming an athletic trainer my senior year of high school, actually. My high school had an athletic training, a student athletic training program. And I had a friend who was in that program. And I had no clue about it, didn't know anything about it. But I went to a game one day and I saw him down there. And so the next day at school, I asked him, I was like, hey, what is that? And he was like, "Oh, it's this. You should, you should do it." Funny enough, he was saying that because he wanted a friend in the program, but when I came in, he was gone already. So that still didn't quite work out. But it definitely ignited um, my passion for health and wellness, for movement sciences. The body is fascinating. It is a fascinating, fascinating thing. And it remains fascinating even after all these years because we're constantly discovering, new things about it and new things that it can do and how it perseveres and keeps going and how it makes do. Even in not the best circumstances, it still makes do. But I always say that, sometimes we have to help it. Sometimes it'll make do and it'll persevere, but it's always good for us to lend a hand if necessary. And a lot of the way we can help it is through movement, is through, choosing healthy making healthy decisions, choosing just and very simple. It doesn't even take a lot. It's just very simple choices that we can make to help our body help itself, essentially. So I started in high school, and then I got my master's in kinesiology with a concentration in athletic training. And then after I finished my master's, I worked at a school in North Carolina for the athletic department as an athletic trainer. I worked with all the sports because it was a small D2 school, but I worked with all the sports. But my main sports were men's soccer, men's and women's swimming, and softball. And then after the school, I did industrial athletic training, which is going into a manufacturing plant um, or any sort of plant, factory work, and providing preventative care at that level as well.
Love it, love it, love it. And that was awesome just thinking about your background. Even as your sister, I feel like I've learned new things about you. So I appreciated hearing some of your background and just hearing just again your pathway into athletic training and just really recognizing, like you said, that the body is very fascinating. It's very resilient, especially when we think about the bodies in childhood. We know that there are many things that kids can be vulnerable to, but also at the same time, the ways that they are very resilient. And then even as we grow, as we encourage those opportunities to help the body, encouraging ourselves to take care of our temples, like it says in the Bible that, we are temples, we are God's temples, we are the Holy Spirit's temples, and so just being mindful of using our bodies for that to take care of that. And so it's just really neat to think about number one, the resiliency of the body, many different ways when we think about wellness and physical health and the many different environments. So as you mentioned, you went from sports arenas and sports scenes to industrial wellness and health and how there's mechanics and health and all of that, right? Even in longevity, if you are working in plants or in the industrial area, when you're thinking about operating heavy machinery, that is very important to be able to be physically fit to handle that, to handle maybe some of the intensity that it requires to manage industrial equipment and being in kind of high intensity spaces. And then all the different things or the concerns or even just the needs that may come up in those spaces. And so, two very different areas, but at the same time, both of them require a healthy body. Both of them require being able to utilize, fitness and health and nutrition to be able to persevere in whatever setting you may find yourself or even push the limits. Maybe for athletes, it's pushing the limits in terms of breaking, personal records. In industrial health, it's persevering in terms of certain settings that you may find yourself in. And so I think it's very important, even when we think about families, when we think about just the day-to-day life and just different things that we have to do on a regular basis. Let's bring it all the way home to homeschool when we're thinking about carrying backpacks, kids having to carry backpacks, when we're carrying groceries, when we're running in and out of places, when we're thinking about just everyday life, if we're carrying heavy bags, if we're doing this and that, just some of the mechanics that come with it and just being able to be fit. If you are, say, a parent of small kids and you're carrying around an infant or a toddler while you're also, teaching an older kid, just thinking about the wear that it may cause on the body, but also things that we can do to strengthen ourselves so that we can endure in some of those seasons. And we definitely know, for those who may check this replay and you may be a parent of young kids, your sleep may be little. You may not have a whole lot of sleep. And so just thinking about the importance of trying to get those restful spurts in while you can, that phrase, even though we would love for it to be easier than what it is, but it's like sleep while the kid is sleeping, sleep while the baby is sleeping. Sometimes it does not always work out like that. A lot of times it doesn't always work out like that, but just thinking about those opportunities for rest. And that's just kind of been a big theme. I know for a lot of people as well, is just thinking about the importance of rest when you're also thinking about wellness and wholeness, when you're thinking about nutrition, exercise, rest gives your body a chance to regroup, to reset, to get back on track. And so even just thinking about the importance of that as well in the grand scheme of health. And
Right.
so I don't know if maybe we can just kind of like dialogue about like just practical tips, things that maybe you suggested to athletes. So maybe there's, parents who have older athletes, strength and conditioning that might be helpful. And again, disclaimer, this is all educational. Consult your provider, consult your professional, consult your specific athletic trainer, even on what you need to do for your situation. But just thinking about, maybe some helpful tips that you've seen over the course of either in the sports arena or even in industrial health that have been helpful when you think about just preserving the body and those types of things.
Right. So strengthening is very important. It's especially as someone gets older, the mitigating factor a lot of times between very practical, like if they may fall or not and able to get back up is their strength. So a lot of times, if an older person, they've had fall issues, and they go to fit PT, what the PT is going to focus on is strengthening, balance, to make sure that their body can essentially hold itself up, or they can recover. Like if they trip, they can recover without falling. And that really doesn't change the younger you are. Balance and strengthening is just really, really important. It's never too late to start. You can always make gains. And they're always going to be helping. They carry you through as well. It's not they don't sure if you stop it might be, but uh you might experience some like lessening of it, but like ultimately if you do it versus if you don't do it, even if you stop, you're still going to have positive benefit even later on in life. Um Mobility, so you have strength, but you also, you have to couple that with mobility. Mobility is it's so neglected, but it's so, so important. Mobility is kind of to me those, well, strengthening too, but even more so mobility, you can really get into those functional movements, what I call functional movements. So like your everyday, you know, walking upstairs, bending over to pick something up, carrying groceries, like you said, inside from the car, you know? So those functional movements. And if you're having an issue with mobility in whatever joint, your back, your ankles, wrists, elbow, neck, whatever, that's going to affect all the way up the chain. The body is a connected organism. So dysfunction down the stream is going to affect function up the stream. So mobility is really, really super important. Even if you don't do strengthening, mobility is super important because it's just you have to be able to move. You have to be able to move. And then with mobility, you have flexibility. So I know we think of stretching. Stretching is not quite mobility. Um, Mobility deals more with joints, whereas stretching deals more with ligaments across the joint, not the joint necessarily itself. But you want that flexibility as well. Um, Again, you your ligaments need to be taught to hold your bones in place, but they don't need to be so taut to where if something happens, they're going to tear, right? So you need both the strengthening, again, functional strengthening. Walking up the stairs are squats. People don't think of it like they are. They're single-legged squats, up or down the stairs. So you should be able to know how to squat. You should have some sort of squatting ability. You know, Bending over to pick up groceries, that's a deadlift. So it's a hinge movement. So it's just important to we think about it, exercise, weightlifting, all that kind of stuff, but it's really just functional motions, things you don't think about. That's what that motion is. Okay, you're not picking up 500 pounds doing it necessarily, but it's still the same motion. And it's the motion that's important more so than the weight itself.
And that's good to hear. I'm sure for all the parents there applauding, like, "Yay, me picking up groceries! I'm deadlifting right now." And so
You are.
you're doing more than you realize. You're doing more than you realize in terms of even just that movement. And so maybe just being more intentional about when you're lifting, using certain mechanics, right? Like you mentioned, if you affect one area, it goes all the way up the chain. So hey, if we're deadlifting groceries here, let's lift with our knees, right? If we're
Mhm.
deadlifting, even as we're lifting, kids or babies or toddlers, like lift with your knees as best as you can so that you're not just straining your back. You're not bending down in a way that's going to cause a tear or something along those lines. And so just thinking about some of those, especially again in early parenting and early childhood, you're already doing a lot of movement. And so it's just being intentional about what that movement looks like. And then also making sure that, like you said, you're encouraging that flexibility so that when you are in the mobile state, that your body kind of moves and shifts with you. Even when you were talking about just balance, and that's such a huge factor. Even as kids are learning to walk, they're trying to get that balance. So even just those games that you can play that encourage balance, right? When you're, kind of lining up in a line or pretending like you're on a tightrope, those are encouraging balance. When we think about, low balance beams, again, to the point that you feel safe, don't just throw your kid up on a balance beam and it's like high up in the air, but one of those low beams, or if you're just walking on a piece of wood, things that maybe I did it in childhood, that was probably now there's science behind it, right? So you're climbing a tree, balancing on a tree, walking up a step within safety measures, just being able to do that. And so I think that's such an important factor to consider that in our everyday lives, we're already kind of doing these things. So how can we be intentional in those movements so that we are preserving our body and taking advantage of the movement, again, especially in early childhood, taking advantage of the movements that we're already doing, right? Even when you're pushing the vacuum cleaner, right? Like there's a movement in that. There's strengthening that can happen in that. And then maybe say, you're at a stage where your kids can be a little bit more independent, but just encouraging that mobility alongside the kids, right? So, for ourselves, sometimes we might have to take the class outside, right? In the sense of if the weather is warm enough and it's, if we can throw on some coats, we can explore, we can do nature walks, we can be outside, we can stretch, we can, make these long jumps or hop or whatever it is, but incorporating that mobility and then mimicking that so that we're getting some type of movement and exercise, but again, we're still being intentional about it. And so I love just hearing that our everyday lives, that functional movement counts. It counts. That's why we have Apple Watches that counts the steps. That's why we have step counters, because that counts. And so just being intentional about keeping that going, especially if maybe you happen to be in the space where if your kid's doing virtual school and they just are sitting at a computer, or maybe yourself is sitting at the computer, being able to get up and go outside for a little bit, being able to get up and maybe practice lifting up some of the grocery bags, or practice climbing a tree or being outside or walking up and down steps to the level that it's safe, and your kid is like at the appropriate age level to do that, with observation and those types of things, and you yourself. I mean, I knew myself even when you know up north there's a lot more houses that have a lot of stairs up and down, and so there's basement level all the way up. And I felt stronger just running up and down the stairs, going from first floor to third floor, second floor to third floor. So if you happen to be in a house that has multiple steps, just thinking about the functionality, the benefit of that functional movement. But then again, just being intentional about also preserving your body. So I don't know if you can talk about, like some of those things where there may be those shear forces that come in because you're going up and down a lot or you're lifting a lot. Like what are some things that you can do maybe to protect yourself even in those everyday movements? Because there may be a parent that says, I don't necessarily have time to go to the gym, I'm carrying the baby around or pushing something around all the time. How can I protect myself when I'm just doing those everyday things to make sure that I'm staying well?
But for that, a lot of it is making sure you're doing the movement correctly, making sure you're doing it well. Um, So you mentioned, if you're bending down to pick up the groceries, make sure you bend your knees, right? You don't lift with, they say lift with your legs, not with your back, right? So the reason being, and it's funny because in the industrial setting, the new hires that would come in, we would have what's called dojo. And one of the things we would teach them is how to lift properly, basically. And it's not just lifting, like lifting is, if you're lifting with your legs, you're doing a squat, right? So this is how to squat properly. And lifting with your legs, it's real, right? Because your legs contain the strongest muscles in your body. Like your back is not that strong. It's a good stabilizing muscle. It does what it's supposed to do. But as far as producing power strength. Your legs are have the strongest, they contain the strongest muscles in the body. So why would you not use the stronger muscles to do the motion versus the weaker muscles? And I know some people have issue with actually bending their knees. Like maybe they have some knee pain going on, some knee dysfunction, and so they have issues with that. It's still the motion of it, right? Number one, I am all about using assistive tools. Okay, so if you need an assistive tool to help pick up that bag you can't quite reach because you can't quite squat, use it, absolutely. But when you do squat to the level that you can, you still do it correctly, right? So keeping your back straight, leading with your legs, right? Start bending your knees first, and honestly, everything else will follow. If you keep your back straight and just really just focus on bending your knees, you automatically, really, your body will automatically start to hinge at the hips, right? And that's really what it is. And your ankles will automatically start to flex, right? So um, it's just being cognizant because it's easy to just bend over real quick and pick something up, but it's about being cognizant of how you're doing that, right? It's practice. You practice it to the point where it becomes subconscious. You practice it to the point where that's just what you automatically do. And I tell, because again, working in the industrial setting, like we don't have time for that. We got to get this, we got to produce this much, da, 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 da. We don't have time to, make sure that our back is straight, make sure this, make sure that. And I'm like, practice it. I don't know what to tell you other than I always say you got to do it to be able to do it. So if you can't practice it at work, practice it at home. But you got to practice it. If you don't practice it, you're not going to be able to do it. If you don't do it, you're not going to be able to do it. So just whatever motion you're doing, be just being paying a little bit more attention or being more mindful of making sure that your alignment is correct. Because at the end of the day, if you bend over and you come back up and you strain something, that strain takes a lot of time to heal. We don't really think about it, but strains, because we constantly use our muscles, we don't really have time to rest like that, take a long time to heal. They tend to take a long time, weeks to heal. So it's better to do it right and not be hurt, or at least significantly reduce your chances of it, than to just be like, oh, whatever, get hurt. Now you're in pain and still got to do whatever else you have to do.
Yeah, and that's
And I
such a
think
good
too,
point. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Keep going.
sorry, when you were mentioning, adding activity into the day, one thing I want to mention is that you don't have to have weights, right? We have a weight. We carry it around with us all the time. Our body weighs something, right? A lot of pounds, over 100 pounds. So like, body weight exercises, you don't ever have to progress from them really if you don't want to. They are sufficient. They will always be sufficient. If you want to progress and add additional weight, cool, that's fine. But like your body weight exercises are great. They're really, really great. And it's amazing the different ways you can set yourself up to to provide the resistance that you need.
That's good. That's good. And I think that's helpful again, especially, for those who may listen to this replay who might be busy moms, busy dads, busy caregivers, that you may say, you know what, I don't have time to get a weight. I don't even know how to get a weight. I don't want to like overexert myself or, whatever the case is. It's using your body as an exercise tool, being able to do that. And again, I guarantee you, if you have young kids or even older kids, you're probably carrying things around as it is. So just being able to, as you said, be intentional, practice, and being able to incorporate that into your mindset so that you can do better, that you don't strain yourself, so that you can have the strength that you need for your kids, because you want to be out there playing, you want to be out there participating in what they're participating in. And so just being able to incorporate those things into it, even for our kids as they are out there, in practice or different sports that they're engaged in. The big piece of it is, get out there at the same time too. You can incorporate math into, running bases. You can incorporate science into nature explorations. And so just being able to use that duality is such a great, taking advantage of that and just learning how to do it the correct way so that you don't hurt yourself while you're out there playing and having fun. You know, if your kids are learning to ride bike, you're right there doing the same thing as well. And just being careful of your mechanics of, say, if you're, if you're pushing that bike, make sure you're not putting too much strain on your back. And I know it's easier said than done, like you said. The more you practice, the more you do it, then you can do it more often. And then the kids will model that behavior. And so when we think about um just being healthy as a family, sometimes you can't get to the gym, and yeah, there are some parents who go to the gym because they just want time to go to the gym maybe and just have their own solo time. But if you're incorporating certain behavior activities, those types of things, and you're modeling that, then the kids will follow along with it. I've seen so many, you could scroll on Instagram and see the fitness moms and the kids that are right there watching exactly what they're doing. So it's the same way in our everyday life as well. Maybe you're not the fitness mom or the fitness dad, but even just modeling certain things, whether it's in rest, whether it's in hydration, trying to eat the right things. Maybe you can't eat everything perfectly. You might be eating a handful of goldfish because that's all you can do, but at least maybe throw a banana in there or an apple or whatever you can eat according to your nutrition, and then staying hydrated, being able to, model that behavior of drinking more water, being able to focus on things that will encourage your body to have the ability to persevere. So maybe, Dr. Michelle said, you don't need weights, you can use your own weight. You don't necessarily need a fancy diet, but just being mindful about what you're putting in your body. That will help set you up for intention. Again, your kids, even if they're picky eaters, they may not, love it right in the beginning, but over time they may gravitate to it because, honestly, we know that kids are sometimes just going to be really resistant to certain things, but there are some things that if you set them up from the beginning or start them on, they can go towards that way. So if you're a family that drinks a lot of water, your kids will focus on that, even if there's other things that they also consume. So as we kind of wrap up a little bit, because this is such a great conversation, and I hope that we can have you back again to be able to talk more about movement science and just tips and tools and kind of everyday life. And I have really, gained a lot, and it's going to make me much more mindful. I'm like, okay, let me make sure my spine's aligned, make sure I'm sitting up straight and doing the right thing. But it's just good. You just put those things and you start to model what you need for yourself. But I don't know if you can speak to, you know, just maybe one or two gentle exercises or gentle things that can be incorporated. Say somebody really wants to get stronger, or there's things that you want to do at home. What are one or two like gentle exercises that, moms who may be homeschooling can do while their kids are around that doesn't require too much of them? Because I know sometimes, again, it's the time factor. So maybe while a kid's napping, or maybe while a kid's working on an activity, or maybe even while you're outside running around, what are one or two things that you can focus on, gentle exercise that maybe even the kids can join a part of it? And if you do that on a daily basis, that kind of helps with strength conditioning or even just resilience.
So whenever I am putting together a workout plan, again, you keep it very simple, very basic. Obviously, things change depending upon your goals, but my goal always is to be healthy. My goal is, that strength, that mobility, um, functional, more what we call functional movement and functional exercises. So I'm going to always have a push and a pull, right? That's as basic as you can get it. A push and a pull. And really it's the same upper body or lower body, it's still pushing and pulling. Um, but for lower body, you talk more about squats and hinging, right? So upper body, a push and a pull, whether it's up and down, up, down, or this way, out, or forward and backward, a push and a pull, bicep curls, um, push-ups, right? That's literally a push and a pull. Push-ups are probably the easiest because you don't need anything else for it. And you can do them on the ground, you can do them on the wall, you can do them on a chair. Like you can do push-ups. And that's why body weight exercise is so great because you could literally do it anywhere and you can modify it however you need to, right? If you can do it on the ground, great. If you need to do it on the wall, great. If you can do it on the chair, great. If you can get kind of halfway and progress from one to the other, great. But definitely a push-up is probably it encompasses literally both a push and a pull. Um, and then squatting, lunges, which is a single leg squat, right? Um, again, once again, it still encompasses that push and pull. And again, you can do them anywhere. You know, if you're outside and you're just walking, maybe stretch your leg out a little bit further so you can go walk into a lunge. You can do walking lunges. You know, squatting, you don't have to squat, 90 degrees. You don't have to squat below 90 degrees. You can squat to whatever you are able to do and modify it however you need to there. Um, that's my main thing. Again, is I will always do a upper body push and pull. I'll always do a squat. I'll always do a hinge. And hinging, you automatically start hinging when you squat. But if you want to focus more on that, again, think of just picking up groceries. You want to, it still incorporates a bit of a squat, but you want the ma majority motion to just come from not your back, but like the hip joint hinging like a door hinge, really, that motion. Um, so you can pick up stuff. That's literally what it is. You pick up stuff, pick up the laundry basket when you're picking up the laundry basket, when you're picking up groceries, when you're picking up toys off the floor. That's you can incorporate a deadlift into that. And then the intensity of it is just what you make it, right? If you want to squat to the floor, great. If you don't, great. It's just what you make it, right? What you do with it. And it's just so modifiable. And that's your basic four, and that's really most of what you need. You don't really have to do too much extra unless you want to.
That's good. That's good. You're already giving me ideas. I'm like, okay, well, I'm getting the laundry basket. Let's squat it out a couple of times before we bring it over. And again, obviously, to the level that you can, to the ability that you can, based off of where you're at. If you're, a couple days postpartum, I'm not suggesting that you do that. If you're still recovering from something, take it according to what your recommendations are from your medical professional and those types of things. If they're telling you don't lift anything over a flour bag, then please do not sit around doing the most. But just make sure that when you are able to do what you need to do, that you slowly incorporate it and you realize that you have more tools right at your fingertips, right around you, than you may think that you have. So we know there's always laundry. We know there's always laundry. So that's the easiest things, or even, picking things up. And again, making it a game, incorporating your kids into it, making sure that as a family, that health is being modeled in a fun way, that it's not a drudgery, that it's not, a chore, but that's just something that we do in our everyday movement so that we can stay strong and we can stay healthy. And again, we know it's easier said than done, but just being able to just being intentional. I think it's really about that intention. So being intentional, keeping it simple, especially just in the beginning stages. And as you increase, then you can find other ways to modify according to your ability, making sure you're, hydrating, making sure that you're finding opportunities for rest in whatever capacity that you can. And I know, again, it changes for different stages, but just whenever you can, get that rest that you can get. It may mean that you're going to have to hold on folding laundry because you just need to sleep. You just need to sleep at that point. So, we hope that this conversation has been encouraging. Thank you so much again, Dr. Michelle Aiken. Again, doctorate of athletic training and also with a master's in kinesiology. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for sharing your insight and your knowledge, and just the different ways that we can functionally utilize our bodies to stay strong. We can use what we have to just be strong in our everyday lives and just be better in our everyday lives. So I appreciate you being on here. We're hoping to do more chats like this. And, maybe in the future, for those who may be interested in, understanding or learning some of those simple exercises or doing that as a community, make sure that you put it in the comments, or, send us a direct message and say, I'm interested in something like that, being able to just, join in with the community, maybe having on a regular basis Zooms like this, but where we're actually working out, incorporating some of those things, including it into our everyday curriculum, even making sure that you have time set aside in your learning day to also be able to, you know, exercise, work out, move, share ideas with others. So if you're interested in those types of things, or if that sounds interesting to you, let us know so we can think about how to set things up for this year. But I'm so excited that we had a chance to have this community chat. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't know if you have any any last minute things that you want to share? Any one or two, any things? I know you gave us lots of tips, but hopefully you felt like you covered your bases. But is there anything you felt like you wanted to say that you may or may not have left out on anything that we mentioned or something that we didn't mention?
Just to keep in mind that it's about health and
Hmm.
wellness.
Hmm.
It's about choosing healthy behaviors. It's not, I know we're in a time, but it's not about weight loss.
Right.
So one of my maxims, I guess, is weight is not an indicator of health,
Hmm.
right? So bigger people are not automatically unhealthy, smaller people are not automatically healthy, and vice versa. It's not about weight, it's about, making sure you have a healthy heart,
Hmm.
making sure that your blood sugar isn't out of control, you know? Um, so just, keeping that in mind when we do things, it's easy, it's very easy, especially with other um, messages that we're getting. It's very, very easy to slip into, I have to look a certain way in order for it, for it to prove that I'm healthy or whatever. But that is not the case. That is absolutely not the case. Um, Health is not, it's mutually exclusive from weight. So just, and when you start looking at the scale, it's hard to be satisfied because then you start noticing those fluctuations. Our weight fluctuates. Everyone's weight fluctuates all day, every day. So then you get into, you know, looking at the scale and saying, oh no, 2 pounds more than yesterday. And then it can lead to really unhealthy behaviors, very unhealthy behaviors. So just not focusing on the scale. I don't even have a scale. I don't even look at it. The only time I get to the
Hmm.
scale is at the doctor's office,
Hmm.
honestly.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, you will notice changes internally before anybody else does. And that's really all that matters. You know you're healthy. You know you're doing healthy things and making healthy choices, and that's all that matters.
That's such a good reminder, and especially again for parents who may have teens or even preteens, making sure that you're understanding and modeling health versus appearance. And it's not to say that you can't have that as a goal at some point, but I think you hit the nail on the head. It's really about being healthy and knowing that you're healthy from the inside out. Because once you have those measures and you're taking those steps, then the rest of it follows alongside of it. So I think that was such a good reminder and really important to keep in mind, again, like you said, because especially moms are going to go through all kinds of body changes, women, men, everybody through life goes through all kinds of body changes. And so not boiling down your health indicator to one thing, but looking at your overall health and saying, am I being healthy? Is my attitude healthy? My mindset healthy? My habits healthy? That are going to set me up for longevity over time. So, thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing that. And I'm just going to take a quick minute and just pray over those who may be struggling with their health or trying to figure out how to be healthier, even in this year. Maybe they've had issues in the past, and those who may come across this replay, and just for the encouragement that they need to incorporate those everyday steps so that little by little they start to transform themselves and move healthier, be healthier, as they go forward in life. So Father, thank you so much for just this community chat and just this opportunity to talk about how we can take care of our temples better, how to be better in our bodies, but also in our minds and our spirits and our souls, especially for those who are homeschoolers that maybe, life can go in many different directions. The day can go in many different directions, but just anyone who comes across this, that they have just the wisdom that they need to take care of themselves, to take care of their family, and for it to be fun and enjoyable, and that they're able to see that inside out glow, that they're able to see those inside out changes, and so that they focus on that health, and being healthy and keeping themselves healthy and having the right mindset about their health and about their fitness, so that they are able to, just as it says in Psalm 91, that they are satisfied with long life. And anyone who may be struggling, that you just supernaturally touch those bodies, restore, repair, for moms who may be getting little sleep, for dads who are getting little sleep, caregivers, grandparents, aunts, uncles, whomever, whoever is getting that little sleep, that you're allowing them to just get restorative time of rest so that they can keep going, that they can educate their kids well, that they can be involved in their kids' lives. And that, as our motto is, that, just for kingdom-minded parents and caregivers to live kingdom-driven lives so that they can grow kingdom-minded children. We thank God for all of this. Thank God for Michelle and just her wisdom. And we look forward to more opportunities for this in Jesus' name. Amen. So
Amen.
thank you, Michelle. Thank you. And I'm so excited for those to catch this replay for who may not have been on the live. I hope you enjoyed this opportunity. And again, take each and every tip or tool or any information that was shared according to what your situation is, according to what your medical professional might be saying, according to what you need for your body, but just an opportunity to encourage you as you move along in your journey. So thank you for joining this My Homeschool Academy community chat, the first one of the year, or Montalvo International Homeschool Academy. Make sure you connect to our Instagram page or learn more about us on our website at montalvointernational.org to learn more about what My Homeschool Academy is about. And just really just it's about forming that community so that parents can flourish, kids can flourish, and that we can be kingdom-minded people raising and educating kingdom-minded kids so that they can go forward in legacy as they move forward and grow. So thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you at the next community chat. Bye, everyone.